Today's episode of the Eskimo Empire podcast is brought to you by the Edmonton Community Foundation and the Well Endowed Podcast. The Edmonton Community Foundation helps people create endowment funds, and the podcast tells the stories of how those intersect with the community. Hosted by Andrew and Elizabeth, the podcast explores the impact of passionate people who are working to make Edmonton a strong, vibrant city to live in. You can subscribe at thewellendowedpodcast.com. Enjoy the show.
Hey, fellas, we ain't gonna ever back down from nobody. I don't care who it is. This is a brotherhood, and if we stand strong together, we can't be denied. If one of us go down, we have another, and another, and another that's ready to fight. So let's hit this field and bang them, bang them, bang them. Somebody, light me up.
Welcome to the Empire. It's the Eskimo Empire podcast.
This is Trevor Harris.
Hey, how you doing? This is number 58, Travis Bond.
This is Christoph Malomba Chimanga.
Hey there, this is your co-host, Kenny Stafford.
Hey, this is Ryan King.
Calvin McCarty.
And you are listening to...
You're listening to the Eskimos Empire.
Listening to the Eskimo Empire podcast.
The Eskimo Empire podcast. Hope you guys enjoy listening.
Welcome back to the Turf District for the Eskimo Empire podcast, and we are a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I'm Andrew, and joined this evening by the one and only Superfan Mike.
Buongiorno.
Ooh, that's
well, you know, we
very
got
French
global,
of you.
Yes. Got me kicked out of French school.
Oh, Spanish?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. I'm glad we sorted that out.
Or Italian, whatever.
It could be that one. Yeah. Forget June. Are we warm yet?
Oh, finally. Oh, my goodness.
Crap. Last week was ridiculous.
We're Eskimos.
That's right. Yeah. So we were fine.
Yes.
Really, when it comes down to it.
No.
No. No Commissioner Kayla tonight, unfortunately. She is feeling a tad under the weather.
Who can blame her?
No kidding. But she will be back for West of Us this coming Saturday.
Outstanding.
I'm very excited for West of Us.
We've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's just that it's always fun, this off-season one, where you have that few months to kind of get out of football mode, and just as you're trying to kind of get back into it, it's like, oh, now we're going to have all these things to talk about, and then we get everybody together. I'm fired up. I'm pretty excited about it.
It's going to be it's a great time getting to see everybody. We got some people that are driving up or flying out or whatever. Which is, that just blows my mind.
Yeah, me too.
Again, people do love to talk their football, so it's like they're obviously ready.
Yes, and we have a few things to talk about, which we will in just a few moments. I did want to let everyone know that if you do come to West of Us, we have a free Kwaku t-shirt for everybody who comes to West of Us. We are also going to be giving away, and if you saw our silent YouTube live podcast that we did this evening, that didn't work quite as well as we had hoped.
It didn't, but we're trying.
Exactly.
New things,
new trying.
I know a lot of people are afraid of change.
That's okay.
But I think it's going to be worth it. This is something that once you kind of get used to the new... People had a hard time getting used to Periscope. So
yes,
now that we're trying YouTube Live, we're eventually going to hopefully be able to stream simultaneously on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Periscope at the same time. So at least there will be options for people that want to watch. So if they prefer to still watch on Periscope, power to you. But if you're more of a Facebook Live person or you like YouTube because the quality's better, you have that option.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing. And you could kind of see in the one that we did this evening where the video quality is just that much better and we're able to do more stuff with it.
That's true. And there was zero noise in the audio. So it was great.
It was great.
Exactly. Didn't hear us yammering away in the background.
I was going to say, a lot of people would say that's just fine.
Yeah. Just saying.
I don't know about that, but no, I am excited to try it a bit more.
Yep.
And but we were showing on there the t-shirts, also a couple of prizes that we have to give away: a signed Natea J picture, also a Google Home Mini,
which is fantastic. I've got a few in my house, and I got to tell you, if I can't tell my lights to turn themselves off,
how do you even live?
Like I'm flipping a switch like a chump. Come on.
It's like super intense clapper. That's really what it is.
I mean, if I could program it to say clap on and clap off, I am done.
You know what? I would just live at your house then, because that would be amazing.
Turf District West.
Now, talking about funny things, this has nothing to do with football, but it was very interesting this evening. As you know, my daughter is 15 years old. So
I do.
She very much likes to spend all of her time in her room. And not around us, because, God forbid, there would be...
You're so embarrassing.
Just people in general, right? So my older son this evening decides, he's gonna go outside for a bit. So he goes down the hallway and knocks on the door. Do you want to build a snowman? That's what he calls through the door. And Olivia opens the door, and in response, which made me laugh so hard, is, "Can you help me hide a body?" I'm like, what? What is going on?
Ought to be 15 again.
Oh my goodness, we laughed very, very hard, because then you could hear Riley like singing the rest of the song, and he's like, "I need some help because the blood won't go away." He's making all of these things. Oh my goodness. It was hilarious. But I guess Olivia saw that on a different YouTube channel that actually has sound. And
they have those now?
Exactly.
Weird.
Yeah. And it's, I believe the whole story was, or the whole song was, "Can you help me hide a body? Come on, please don't delay. It's right here on the floor. Open up the door. It's starting to decay." I'm like, okay, that's really dark. I don't know what you're watching on YouTube, but right at this moment, it's super funny.
We're about to lock it down. That's all I'm saying.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Weird. It's not like us. Oh, a little gong there to tell us it's time to go to something else. Okay, let's talk about some Esks news, because we have some ones to talk about.
We certainly do.
We have some new coaches, and so let's just list them off first, and then we can kind of go through them. So joining Scott Milanovich, defensive coordinator Noel Thorpe, returning special teams coordinator AJ Gass, also returning defensive line coach Demetrius Maxey, defensive assistant Derek Oswalt, O-line will be John McDonnell, and wide receiver pass coordinator Winston October, and a couple more that will be named in the short few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard Brock tell you that it was 2 to 3 more. I think there's only 8 coaches on that list, and we're allowed 11?
Yes.
So we still have up to 3 more spots that we can fill, so that's great.
Absolutely. And with Milanovich taking on the role of head coach, offensive coordinator, and
quarterback
special
coach,
teams assistant.
And he's got 4 titles.
4. Wow. It's really good to have a lot of titles.
Yes, because you need, the more you have, really, why do we need these other guys? Just Scott Milanovich. Just back in the old days,
yes.
We only had 1, maybe 2 coaches.
That's true.
Even in the classic, days of the 70s and early 80s, you had a head coach and maybe 2 on offense, 2 on defense. Who's a special teams coordinator? You don't need that.
You don't need that.
Run around and hit somebody. Of course, back then there was very little blocking.
That's
on returns, so
we watched those games. Yeah.
If it was good enough for them, it's good enough for now.
That's very true. Very true. So very interesting. And actually, if you haven't had a chance yet, we did release a SPEP episode. I was able to catch up with Brock, Coach Milanovich, Coach Thorpe, and Coach Gass.
Yes.
And was just really good chatting with those guys. I was very excited. The one thing that I have to say, though, with every coach that I either overheard or did get a chance to talk to, every one of them mentioned how good the facilities are.
Right. And
how that's a draw not only for coaches, but for players, too.
Absolutely. And Noel Thorpe, when I was listening to it, was mentioning that he only got to see it from the, in the building phase.
Right.
And so this is the first time he's actually been on the home side facilities.
That's right. And going like, wow, this is pretty nice.
Maybe he wouldn't have left in the first place. You never know.
Well, you never know. But now he has a chance to make it all better.
Yes, he certainly does. I'm absolutely thrilled about the coaches we got. I'm really happy about the ones we retained.
Absolutely.
But Noel Thorpe is a guy that we tried to get earlier and we're blocked.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, but no, I think that's going to be absolutely fantastic for the Eskimos. And again, an aggressive style of defense, as he had mentioned in the interview.
Yes.
Which we certainly enjoyed with Philip Lawley. And I think that's going to help attract some really good defensive names, or perhaps retain the ones we have.
Yeah, I was going to say, and more so, even try to retain some of the ones that we have.
Absolutely.
Because right now we're looking at a very depleted linebacking core if
they all leave,
the free agents, right? So
For sure.
Time to start getting some of those guys locked up, which I'm sure will happen in the coming weeks.
If it hasn't already, and we just haven't heard.
That's very true. It's very true. Now, Thorpe, I hear kind of a no-brainer for Milanovic.
Yeah, well, they've got experience together,
Right.
both having been in Montreal in 2007.
Correct.
And then, of course, Thorpe came here in 2008 and 9 and 10 before leaving.
And then Milanovic was the head coach in Toronto,
Right.
and so they've battled each other. And both of them said that, too, in the Scrum interviews. They talked about, well, I hated playing against his defense,
Sure.
so if I didn't, then that's the one I want to work with, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that if you can talk it out and sort of see how the other person plans their offense or defense, you can sort of respect what they're doing. I think that might have had a lot to do in Ottawa, where you've got Paul LaPolice and Benavides, because
Sure.
they were both on the TSN panel together.
Right.
And from what I've heard, anyway, that in between, like when they were not on air, the two of them would just sit back and forth and say, here's my offense, and then Benny would say, here's the defense I'd go against it, and then LaPolice would be like, okay, well then I do. And that's what they would do the whole time. So everyone else would just sit back and listen to these two coaching guys go back and forth. So obviously they got to really know each other at that point. So I think that makes sense that they'd end up together in Ottawa.
How long before Jock Climby joins the staff in Ottawa?
Only if they need a lawyer.
I mean, really.
He's already there.
I mean, you might as well just start bringing them all in. Like, let's just, just be the TSN team.
Exactly. Offensive line coach, Chris Schultz.
Quarterbacks coach, Matt Dunnigan.
That's right.
That's right. Receivers coach, Milt Stiegel.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, really, it's time to switch it around on TSN anyway, isn't it? Whatever. They'd be fine with that, wouldn't they?
Sure.
Nah, let's maybe not do that.
No.
You mentioned it, the guys that we retained, Maxi, Gas.
Oswald, yeah.
Very, very excited about having, especially those first two, I just know them better. But Gas said this, and when I talked to him, he can really expand on last year. And last year he was kind of learning the special teams game as a coach, being the first time up in the CFL. But now he kind of knows what the other guys want to do, and he has some different ideas on how to counter that, and hopefully to make it a tad more exciting, is what he kind of sounded like too.
Yeah, I think that's going to go a long way to have that continuity, especially on special teams. We did mention that, Winston October is also on the team, and he does know a thing or two about returning, being our last really solid returner we had. In fact, outside of Gizmo, the only two big consistent returners we've had in the last, 30 some odd years.
Only.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
We've had some flashes so far, even up into and including Christian Jones. But no one that's been able to consistency year after year be a threat to bring it all the way back.
Right. Absolutely. So, no, I'm excited about that combo. And even talking about October, he's going to have some familiarity with Harris and Ellingson, being that he was in Ottawa too.
Yeah, exactly. And then with Maxi, I think what's going to be fantastic is that it's the team loves him, especially that defensive line.
Absolutely.
They would go through a wall for him, and retaining him goes a long way to us keeping those guys happy, and they were a force last year. That expect big things out of them this year.
Oh, for sure. And that's one of the things that Noel Thorpe said too. He's like, the strength of the defense is you can get pressure with your front four.
Right.
And if you can get that, then I mean, it makes the secondary's job that much easier, right?
Especially when you've got 9 guys, or 8 guys, depending on how many guys you're rushing.
Yeah.
That to defend against really only like 6 guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But I love that Maxi stayed, and happy to see Winston back. Very, very nice guy. I was just walking by. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey." how are you? This is really cool. So,
and if there's a burning building, he's your guy.
Absolutely, yes. Let's just ask Dave Jameson.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We should.
I guess he was recommended by Jamie Elizondo too. So there's another. Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
So there was some good attachment there, which is kind of neato.
For sure. There's a great relationship with Milanovic and Elizondo. So
yes, and Oswald that we already mentioned was recommended by Moss. So there's some connections there for sure. Now the McDonald, I don't know that much about. Although he did spend some time with Milanovic in Jacksonville.
Right, and he was the last 2 years he was in Ottawa.
Right.
So he's got mostly American experience, but he has got some Canadian experience. And to me, if you think about it, if he's going to be your offensive line guy, 2 years ago, they had a pretty solid offensive line in Ottawa before it got a little more decimated, which means he's very familiar with Sir Vincent Rogers, which I think is going to be great. I think, obviously, Kelly had been gone from Ottawa at that point. So, but, I mean, if we can get Sir Vincent back up to where he was 2 years ago, this is going to be a real force on that line.
Absolutely. Now, I was able to go to the media lunch, but they did have the EE3 exclusive meet and greet in the evening. Unfortunately, none of us got to go there, but I did get a few reports back from some of the fans that got there. Said it was a pretty interesting, just a good environment, and nice to have the little bit of hot stove, and of course, nice to have the surprise with Trevor Harris showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. I think that doing things like this is just going to really strengthen that connection between the team and the fans. A chance to be able to speak with coaches, with players, with other people associated with the team, like Brock Sunderland, and be able to ask questions and have that one-on-one time, especially in an intimate environment where it's not, thousands of people all in the same room.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there were a few people that were upset it wasn't a bigger setup or more EE3 people could go.
It's the first one.
Exactly. And really, they're going to do different draws throughout different parts of the year, right? So not every EE3 person is going to get to this one, but they might get to the next one.
Right.
So I still think that the biggest thing about this, though, was to make it that experience, like you just said, right? That intimate setting, make it an experience. That's what ties people to the team, is getting that little more one-on-one, or that experiences. There's kind of where we're at, especially with some of the generation, the millennials. That's what they're looking for.
Oh, absolutely. Experiential things, I think, are the key to getting those people not only coming to the team and coming to the games, but keeping them.
Yeah.
So it's not
being
just
invested.
Checking out the thing and being like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, and then never seeing them again.
Yeah, exactly.
Which can happen when you have things like, that every team has to do, but when you have the cheap tickets, you might get them once in a while, or the concerts.
Right.
They're going to come for the concert, they might see the game and think, yeah, okay, whatever, but they weren't even paying attention.
Right.
Here now they're a little more invested, so I think there's still more that they can do, and they will. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we did have a couple of player signings as well since we last recorded, which is exciting because we're getting into the time of hopefully seeing some more player signings.
Yes.
The team does extend Shaquille Cooper. Yay!
Oh, thrilled about
Shaq
that.
Cooper for 2020 season. To me, that's very exciting, and I did talk to Brock about that, and looking for hopefully a little bit more expanded role, but he loves it being here, and we love having him, so that was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I think we really didn't get a chance to see him 2 years ago, but last year I think was a bit of a coming out party for him. He had that great game against Toronto.
Yes.
Where he just really announced, I'm here.
My fantasy loved that game.
Oh, me too. Yeah. He was cheap, and he paid off in a lot of points.
Absolutely.
Every back has got strengths and weaknesses to his game. To me, that speed, especially going outside of the tackles, is really hard to defend against. He still was good going between the tackles as well. His blocking seemed to be his weakest facet, but I think with going from Mike Gibson now to McDonald,
I don't know exactly how you say it. McDonald is what I've been saying, but I'm not sure if that's right.
We'll just say with Johnny Mac.
Perfect. Yeah.
Coach Mac, if a second voice, being able to give a different training and different coaching, I think can only just help him. And
also learning from CJ.
Yep, absolutely.
Like, he's been able to watch CJ block as well, so you kind of learn from that, right?
And it's not that he was atrocious. It's that was probably his weakest facet of his game. I think he's had some good hands catching out of the backfield as well, which in the CFL you have to be able to do as a running back.
Absolutely.
Just the arrow's going up on him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I 100% agree. Speaking of arrows going up, they also extended Brian Walker through 2022.
Yes, sir.
3-year deals. Yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
We discussed on the intro, the video that no one heard. So I guess we can, for the first time, tell everyone.
Exactly.
I think that he is one of those players to really watch. We enjoyed him out of training camp and into the season this year when he subbed in for Don Unamba at the Sam linebacker. It's more of a nickelback position.
Right.
I think.
But then he was even playing in the secondary.
He was, playing defensive half,
and thought he did very well.
He did very well. I think he's a young guy. I think he's 23 or 24 now, so he's still got a long way to go on this. And I'd love to see him do as much of his career as possible in green and gold.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I thought that was great. Dave Campbell also reporting that Josh Stangby is likely going to be back, which he was injured last year, so we didn't really get to see very much of him. But fiery guy when he was at training camp, that's for sure. It'll be interesting to see with him coming back and getting another shot there.
Yeah, I think that speaks well to the organization. When you have guys that didn't really have any connection to the team because they didn't play, are willing to sign up again before hitting free agency. Yeah,
no, that's a great thing to hear. Now, a couple of guys had mentioned on Twitter, Brandon in particular, found kind of a few names that they have done their own kind of announcements, but nothing specifically linked from the team as of yet. Defensive end Quincy Redman. Great story from Jerry Modajong on this guy's career. From being homeless for a while to...
Sounds familiar.
Exactly.
Diggs
we sure like the way Diggs plays. So if he's got any spirit like that, well, that's great. But even part of his story was he was playing a game and ended up paralyzed.
Wow.
At one point, and then basically had to teach himself to come back to walking and all those other things. And now he's looking at playing at a professional level. That's an incredible story.
Absolutely. I mean, he's the guy you're going to be cheering for in camp.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. Another one that was mentioned was Zach Edwards, but I'm not sure what position he plays. It just says Zach Edwards. So I didn't get to do a lot more research on that.
He plays it all.
But he does everything.
He throws the ball and catches it.
Perfect. Those are the kind of guys we want.
Speed.
Yeah, isn't that? It's wonderful. Team does also release Kendall Vickers today for NFL opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta... If they have an opportunity to make that kind of money and have that kind of career, because careers are short, especially in the NFL, except for the upper 1 or 2%, you might only have a couple of years, if that. And so if you can make some good money that's life-changing, playing the sport you love, you got to give them that shot.
Yeah, for sure. And the other part is I think we kind of knew some of these moves were coming. I mean, look at all the defensive linemen that we had already signed.
Sure.
So, it's not that difficult when you got Jake Ceresna sitting in the cabinet to letting another guy have another chance, right?
Absolutely. We still have a lot of guys at both defensive tackle and defensive end.
Absolutely.
Still a lot in there.
Yeah, so I'm not terribly worried about it, but all the best of luck to Kendall, of course.
For sure.
Yeah, hope he does well down there. All right, let's take a really quick break. We will come back with the Esk's History segment, and then we will answer some fan questions when we come back.
Hey, this is Joe Monsanto Knox here, and you're listening to the Eskimo Empire Podcast.
You can join the Empire online.
Find us at eskempire.ca.
Check out all the new blogs and then follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
For more history, follow at Esk's History on Twitter.
And even more of my pics on Esk Empire Photo.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to help the pod grow. Thanks again for listening. Let's get back to the show.
This episode is also brought to you by Unit B Co-working. Unit B is a multi-company co-working space focused on helping people pursue their passions and making Edmonton its creative best. Join a tight-knit group of freelancers, startups, and established organizations, all dedicated to getting things done. Besides desks and offices, Unit B offers members access to its podcasting studio and meeting spaces, as well as a kitchen, Wi-Fi, and the usual amenities. It's located in the historic McKinney Building on 104th Street, close to everything downtown, including the Bay LRT station. You can book a tour today at unitb.ca. All right, it is time.
Is it?
Oh, it's so exciting. It's the first time as we get some results as we go into our Eskimos history moment.
Let's hear you cheer and holler for a mighty famous team. Let's hear you roar, you know what, for a team that's on the beat. Our voices rise up to the skies, the fans are glad to scream. We love those Eskimos.
Welcome back to the Esk's History Moment. This off-season, we are building the ultimate Eskimos depth chart as voted on by the fans of this podcast and the Edmonton Eskimos. This poll runs every 2 weeks and selects players from 1975 to 2019. But what about players from before those years? Working with some good friends of the podcast who were around in the early days of listening to our heroes on the radio, reading about them in newspapers, and the early days of television, we have put together a separate roster featuring only those players from the first 25 years. On a personal note, we would like to dedicate this vintage roster to dear friend Ernie Rasco, known to many of us as Pismo, who passed away December 14th, 2019, and was a good part of putting together this roster. Without any further ado, let's look at those positions using players from the first 25 years of the Green and Gold. First up, we have the long snapper position. In the early days of the Eskimos, the long snapper was usually whoever played center, so they had to have the skill to snap directly to the quarterback, as the shotgun was rarely, if ever, used, as well as snapping back to holders and punters. There were many centers over the years who fit this profile, but the overwhelming choice was Bob Howes. Howes joined the Eskimos in 1972 after 4 years with the BC Lions, who were cleaning house, releasing many players. The Eskimos, who were last place in 1971, had first claim on released players and snapped up several players released by the Lions coach Eagle Keys and GM Jackie Parker, both former Eskimos themselves. Howes ultimately replaced Peter Travis as the starting center, and from 1972 through 1981, solidified the kicking game with the same long snapper, kicker, and holder for all 10 seasons.
And according to Tom Wilson, had a pretty nice figure.
He did.
Wilkinson.
Whoever.
You know what I meant.
Tom Wilson was great in Junkhouse.
Wilkinson. Cheapers.
During his time at this position, Edmonton saw its field goal percentage improve by 50% over the 1971 season and scored 331 field goals and 1,533 points over Howe's time with the team. Howes initially retired after the 1980 season, but was lured back for one more year that was coincidentally his last year for his holder, Tom Wilkinson. The last play in Bob Howe's illustrious career was snapping the ball to Wilkie with 6 seconds left on the clock, and Dave Cutler kicked the winning field goal in the 1981 Grey Cup to beat Ottawa 26-23. Awesome. Howes retired for good after that game and coached his alma mater at the University of Queens, but number 53 set the bar for long snappers to wear green and gold then and forever.
And as it turns out, kind of now.
That works out.
Interesting.
In the first 25 years of the Eskimos, the punting position did not use a specialist as they came to be known. Punting was done by someone who played another position on the field. Whether it was a quarterback, running back, or even lineman, you could be called on to kick the ball into play on third down. While there were other standouts, including Jackie Parker, Vic Chapman, and Gary Lefebvre, the standout in the first 25 years only played 2.5 seasons in green and gold, but made a huge impact on the position for Edmonton and others, Bobby Walden. Walden came to Edmonton as a 22-year-old rookie in December of 1960 to an aging team with its best years behind them. Vic Chapman had held down the punting job for the past few years, and Walden, who doubled as halfback, split those duties with the aging tight end. Walden outpunted his elder counterpart by an average of 7 yards per punt that year. In addition to punting, Walden was the team's leading kick returner, punt returner, and receiver, as well as being 4th in team rushing in his rookie season, and could be seen in the defensive secondary as a 60-minute man. In his second season, he again split punting duties with Chapman. However, Walden improved his average punt by nearly 3 yards over his previous year to lead the league in punting average with 48.7 yards. 1963 saw the Esks in free fall, and head coach Eagle Keys traded Walden to Hamilton after the first game of the regular season. He returned to Edmonton 3 weeks later, but injuries had hampered him that season, and he was released after another year. Bobby Walden made the jump to the NFL in 1964, first with the Minnesota Vikings, and later with the Pittsburgh Steelers from 1968 to 1977, where he still leads the team in most punts and most punting yards over a career, and was elected to their all-time team in 2007 for the club's 75th anniversary.
Both of us are happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The last position we are selecting this week is for the kicker. Again, for the majority of the first 25 years of the Eskimos since 1949, kicking was simply something a player did in addition to another position. Kickers included original head coach / tight end Anis Stukas, lineman Wilbur Snyder and automatic Bob Dean, quarterback halfback Jackie Parker, and ends Tommy Joe Coffey and Peter Kempf. By the late 1960s, however, teams started employing specialist kicking players. The Esks tried to make a move to kicking-only player in 1969 by signing former Stampeder fullback Bill Goods, but the result were disastrous, so they turned to a former linebacker out of Simon Fraser University, Dave Cutler. Cutler, a 1969 Eskimo draft pick, had an auspicious start in the CFL, going 2 for 4 in field goals and 2 for 4 in converts in the season opener, before the team released him for the more experienced Goods. The elder place kicker had an atrocious pair of games himself, and the Esks lost each game by a single point, where Goods went 1 for 5 on converts and 0 for 5 on field goals. So Edmonton reinstated Cutler, determined to let the rookie sink or swim in his debut season. By his sophomore year, Cutler's new head coach, Ray Yock, wasn't going to put up with too many misses. In the first preseason game of 1970, Cutler, nicknamed 1 Point by linebacker Jerry Griffin, missed a 36-yard field goal, and Yock signaled for Peter Kempf to go into the game. Kempf, unfortunately for him, didn't have his kicking shoe on at the time, so the head coach begrudgingly allowed Cutler back in to kick, who followed it up with field goals of 39, 49, 50, and 57 yards to cement his place on the team and into Esks history. Dave Cutler owned that job for 16 years, at the time the longest-serving Eskimo ever when he retired after the 1984 season, holding the CFL and pro football records for field goals and points for many years. He was enshrined on the Eskimos' Wall of Honor in 1986 and entered the Canadian Football Hall of Fame in 1998, but long before that he was a legend in the minds of the fans of the Edmonton Eskimos.
Going for a touchdown. Going for a touchdown. Going for a touchdown. We love those Eskimos.
Wow, Superfan, that was awesome. I'm really liking picking the roster and then getting the details on each guy.
Yeah,
that's awesome for these first 25 years. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's kind of fun. It's I think most of us know the current guys, especially the last 5-10 years, and maybe you'll get a few names from 20 years ago, that kind of thing.
Right.
But
yep.
Most of them are, if they've been selected by the fans know them.
Right.
So we thought it would be an opportunity to, just because most of these guys aren't going to make the roster anywhere else on a modern.
Of course, right.
If you were allowed the entire 71 years. So, I talked to a good friend of ours, Turfto27, Dan, and I'd been working with Ernie on this as well, and before he passed, sadly, in December. So, along with a few other people. So it's kind of nice to talk to people that certainly were around long before I was.
Right.
And able to sort of just say, okay, well, this is, back in the day, this was the guy.
You're right, yeah.
And, so it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that same note, we, of course, put out our poll for the current depth chart roster.
Yeah, we run this one in parallel as well. So we do have the fan vote, but we also, much like you did with the Esks by the numbers, we have a parallel media vote as well, where members of the media, both podcasting, newspaper, and radio, all gave us their picks.
Awesome. Awesome. So should we go over those results?
Yeah, let's. We can probably do them sort of again side by side and compare.
Perfect. Okay.
So we'll start off with the long snapping position as well.
Absolutely.
This one was for both the fans and the media. Everyone agreed with 79% of the fan vote. Again, a number 53 at the long snapping position. So we went with Bob Howes, who ended that 49 to 75, and we're ending the one with the last 7 or 8 years with Ryan King.
Absolutely, yes, as it should be.
Yeah, not a surprise. No. There were some great names in there.
Sure.
People. Roger Rhinson was a great snapper. Randy Chevrier, obviously Blake Dermott.
Yes,
held that position for many, many years. There was a bit of an error in the.
I was wondering if you were going to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, especially when Blake Dermott himself is the one that brings it up. When we were putting this all together, I was just doing it by numbers. And it was supposed to be number 57, which is Eric Upton, was a long snapper, but unfortunately I went with 67, which was Rod Conop, and as Blake pointed out, if he had a nickel for every time Rod Conop snapped the ball, he'd have $0, because Rod never did any long snapping whatsoever. So I apologize for that, and thanks to Blake for pointing that one out. Me a couple.
It happens.
But again, the fans and the media definitely both in agreement on that position.
Awesome.
Next up would be the punting position. Again, this was a fairly dominant performance. I thought that Sean Fleming did get some votes at the position for punting. So did Glenn Harper, who's again a friend of the podcast.
Absolutely.
But overwhelmingly, everyone voted for Hank Alisic, who most people remember was with the team right out of high school in 1977. A 17-year-old kid with a size 13 shoe that could literally kick the cover right off that ball.
Yeah, well, he changed the game as far as punting is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. He was out kicking his opponents by upwards of 10 yards plus every exchange. So,
wow.
He was one of those guys that he didn't get the Esks by the number for number 8. That went to Tracy Ham.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to give it out to a punter over a quarterback, but this is a guy that is definitely in the Hall of Fame, and well-deservedly so, for the way he changed the position, making it a specialist position. He replaced Gary Lefebvre, who was a what they called wingback at the time, sort of a slot back type position, as well as a punter, whereas Hank is just solely a punter. So that didn't happen very often back then, and a lot of people forget that. So.
Yeah, and he played on lots of teams and made an impact everywhere he went.
Yeah, he was just the Eskimos, and then from the Eskimos to the Toronto Argonauts. So he actually was in 7 consecutive Grey Cups, winning the last 6.
That's
which
crazy.
Is something that just doesn't happen
very
often, obviously, or once. I think the only person I can think of that was our coach, and that was Cal Murphy, who won in Montreal in 77 and then 5 in a row with us. So.
Right.
And then the last position, this was the only one where it was split, where the fans and the media had a different answer.
Okay.
The fans, and this was super close, went with 39% voted against 38% for the second place.
Wow.
Of the vote. And then the third place was way back. So the winner in this one was Sean Fleming for the fan vote.
Wow, really?
A lot of people, I mean, obviously Fleming has a lot of records with the team.
For sure.
He's still holding them all. Whereas the media went with the guy that may end up breaking those records, and that's Sean White.
Okay.
If you look at percentages, White runs away with it. I mean, he's well over 90% accuracy versus in the 70s for Sean Fleming. But Fleming, I mean, he was also the kicker as well as the punter. Yeah. So once he replaced Glenn Harper doing both jobs. But I mean, to be honest, I don't think you can go wrong with either pick.
No, absolutely not. No, they were both all-stars as far as kicking is concerned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it could be either way for sure.
Interestingly, for the fan vote, Sean White wasn't number 2, he was number 3. Number 2 was Dave Cutler with that 38% to Sean's 39. But we saw, of course, Super Toe, which is a way better nickname than 1 Point, got that for the vintage vote. So he's still represented there.
That's awesome. Okay, and our vote this week, which is already giving me anxiety, but you might as well talk about it.
It's just not going to get any easier, I'm telling you right now.
No, it's definitely not. No.
So we had 3 positions we were voting on with a single winner in each.
Right.
This one we have 2 positions with multiple winners. So this is going to, I think, be very interesting because there's a lot of options. The first one I think is going to be a little easier, and we're looking for the kick returner position, but there are going to be 2 people elected.
Okay.
So while I think we have a general idea who's going to run away with this category.
Pun totally intended.
Totally intended.
Yeah.
Who's going to back him up? Who's going to be the second guy on that depth chart that's returning some punts and kicks on the other side of the field? So I'm looking forward to seeing what both the fans and media say on this one.
That should be an interesting one, yes.
And the one I think that's going to give the most people fits is the receiver position is also going to get voted on, and this is going to take 6 receivers, which sounds like a lot of people to pick from. But
when you have the options that you do.
Yeah, when you've got 45 years of receiving, and we've had some incredible receivers, it can go all over the place. There are going to be people that have that vintage sort of mindset where they're going to go back to Brian Kelly and Tommy Scott and George McGowan and Waddell Smith and all those guys. Some guys are going to look at the more modern players where you've got guys like Darrell Walker, Duke Williams, Brandon Zylstra, Darius Bowman, lots of modern guys, and everyone in between.
And you look at those early 2000s where you're talking Ed Hervey, Mookie Mitchell,
Jason Tucker, Terry Vaughn.
How is that not just your lineup?
There are going to be some amazing players left off this list.
Absolutely. And that is going to be a challenge.
Absolutely. So it should be out the same time as this podcast. So just check the @EskHistory account, check the @EskEmpirePod account. It'll have the link to this.
Absolutely.
It'll also be on Facebook. So get in there, vote. Please, just 1 vote per person per category.
Yep.
So, once you voted for it, wait a couple of weeks, we'll get the results, and then we can go to the next one.
Okay, sounds awesome. That's really good. And so we're going to do the same parts for the history moment then as well. So we'll do that. Run that in parallel, so you'll do the 2 kind of kick returners and receivers?
That's correct. So we're not going to have as many because back in the day we didn't have as many receivers on the field.
Right.
You can have a 6-pack of receivers, right?
Right.
But back in the day you certainly didn't. You might have had 3 or 4.
Right.
So there are going to be less of them for that one, but they'll be, like you say, more running backs, fullbacks kind of thing. So
okay, perfect. Sounds awesome. Oh, I can't wait for it. Now, one thing that did come out last week that we didn't get a chance to talk about on the last pod was the CBA did become public knowledge, I guess, where there are some very, very motivated and brave people that read the entire thing. I just took the snippets that I needed because I'd
like to thank them because then I didn't have to.
Absolutely, yes. Full thanks to those people who are reading the whole thing. But one of the things that did come up is they are changing how they count a national. And how many need to be on the field?
Yeah, I mean, they're still going to have 7 nationals like they had last year, the year before that, but they're adding to it, which I think is going to make things really interesting.
Right. So I know you research this a little bit, so give me your opinion on what they're doing as far as adding in. How can you add to it?
Right. So what's interesting is they've done something similar before. This is sort of a modern take on that, where you need 10 nationals, and 3 of them, up to 3 of them, it doesn't have to be, are going to be Americans that have played with your team for 3 years, or at least in the CFL for 4 years. So people that have been around in Canada for at least 4 years, or if they've been with the same team for 3 years, 3 of those guys will qualify as nationals. Add that to the rule that came in last year, where if a national gets hurt, it can be replaced by an American.
Right.
And that's going to really give some flexibility to those rosters, but it's going to be really interesting watching that shuffle.
Oh, for sure. And when you start to think about it, at first I thought, okay, I don't know if I really like this, but then I started to think about how many guys on our team last year would have qualified as these kind of
naturalized Canadians. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So obviously Mondo.
Yeah, Mondo's a big one
Mondo
for sure.
counts for sure. You look if he's still on the team, Bazzi would probably be. He's been in 4 years. He's got to have been in 4 years, so he would now count. You look on the line. Colin Kelly's definitely been around for 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now he would count. Greg Ellingson would now count.
CJ Gable.
Absolutely. So
our receiving core. Greg Ellingson.
Yeah.
He's been around for 4 years.
Ricky Collins Jr.
Collins Jr. has been around for 4 years.
Absolutely. So there's
no lack of it.
No, exactly. And I think that definitely, I love the idea though of having that if you're with the same team for 3 years. So that's where you look at that deal with Brian Walker where in a couple more years, he has that 3-year deal, but in that fourth year of that, or third year of that deal, which would be his fourth year playing up here, he could be one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so maybe there is a bonus to that at the end, like a different pay grade on that. Who knows, right? Like I don't know how that all works with GMs, but I like it. I'll be curious to see how we follow it or how you kind of try and keep track of it. But it should be interesting.
Yeah, I almost think that it's too easy.
Okay.
The 4 years in the CFL rule. Again, we just rattled off a handful of players that fit, but there's probably 10, 15 guys on the Eskimos alone.
Sure.
Between the active roster, the practice roster, and the injured reserve that qualify. I mean, you just have to find 3 guys. That's not going to be that tough, honestly.
Right.
I think if you would have said it has to be 3 years with your team or 6 years in the CFL, then you start seeing, even still, you've still got a bunch of guys to pick from. But I think that's going to extend careers. And I think for fans, that's just a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what we're looking for. It's a bit of consistency, right?
Absolutely.
So I like that. All right, we got some Empire cues for us to answer.
Do we?
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we actually tackle that first one that you got from Third Down Gamble, just because it kind of relates to this kind of CBA and different things of players moving around.
Yeah, so this is a good friend of mine, Don, who, while he, in his own words, cheers for a different shade of green, he is a huge CFL fan who loves the league as a whole and just happens to cheer for the wrong team.
And he's supported us very well. So
he absolutely has. He's a super guy. I've had him at my house, so we can be friends on Facebook. Isn't that how it works?
Excellent. Yes, that is. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so he had a couple of questions. The one I'd really like to tackle is he wanted to ask about our opinions on CFL players who are under contract who asked to be released for an NFL trial. So this is not the players that are going to be a free agent in a month or so or in a couple of weeks. These are guys that have at least one more year, if not more, left in their contract who do ask to be released because they've got some NFL interest. What he's wondering is this something that is going to, like, how do we balance between what's good to attract American players to a league versus fans that are trying to get an attachment toward these players as well as coaches that are trying to plan their rosters? This is a tough one to start off with. I'm not going to lie.
Oh yeah, no, this is an in-depth and a tough question.
I think I can take both sides of the argument. I mean, it's if you want to attract the best players to your league, you need to be able to offer something to someone that has to leave their family, leave their chase for that NFL goal to come up here so they can try and get an NFL shot. Again, if we were paying the same dollars to players as the Americans,
then it wouldn't matter.
And it really doesn't matter at that point. Then people really are searching this out. I mean, years ago, it used to be that Canadians played the same, if not more, than the NFL until they started unionizing and saying, "Wait a minute, we're why they're coming." So,
yeah, exactly.
And then from the other perspective, a contract's a contract. If I sign a contract with an employer, I have to, and vice versa. But the thing is the vice versa. I mean, if you sign a contract with a team, they can cut you tomorrow and not have to pay you anything.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I think you need some sort of balance there, and I think this is the best way to do it. It's not like this has been an outstanding year for players in the CFL going to the NFL and getting signed.
Tons of guys going down. Absolutely.
On every team. So this is, to me, it's not the norm. Or maybe it's the new norm, and I'm just, out to lunch. But
and it could be the new norm. I think the other part of it, though, is just... and I get the whole argument of we want the consistency and we want the guys up here, and I totally get behind that. The thing is, though, is I don't want consistency for a guy who doesn't want to be here because he'd rather have had a shot down south. I'd rather that he takes the shot. And I think it's a bit of goodwill that if he goes down and either doesn't get there or gets a shot but then gets cut or whatever, where is he going to go back? To the team that actually said, yeah, okay, go take your shot.
Yeah, I just wonder if they can start working something into the CBA for the next time that says if someone, instead of it, a full release,
right?
It's like a release with they still hold your rights when you come back.
Right, I can see that, yeah.
That would, I think, be something that sort of that happy medium where it's like, listen, we will let you out, but if for whatever reason you don't stick with the team and you come back, then when you come back, we still hold your rights for the remainder of that contract.
Totally makes sense.
I think that way it sort of protects both sides.
I wonder how many of the deals are kind of handshake deals like that already, but just make it legal. Make it that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. I mean, we look at Jake Serezna as a great example.
Absolutely.
Someone that we let out, or didn't let out of the contract, but he did not have he had, I think, a month left on his contract.
Right, yes.
But again, we treated him well. And just like any job, you treat your employees well, train them so that they could get any job, but treat them well enough that they don't want to leave.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I really like that for sure. Okay, another question came from Derek Mapstone, and his question was the number one free agent. Now, he said number one free agent for the Esks to go after. I took it as a little bit different just for you and I. I'm going to say, what's the number one guy that's on our roster that you want re-signed? And what is a guy outside of the Eskimos? Not one from every team, just one guy.
One guy from
across
one non-Eskimo, one Eskimo.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So
should we both do our non-Eskimo, or do our Eskimos first, then we'll do our non-Eskimos after?
Yeah, I like that.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. I'll start off on this one. For the Eskimos that I would most like to re-sign, to me, that's got to be Larry Dean.
Number one, Larry Dean. Okay.
I think that he was I've said it many times, the straw that stirred the drink on defense. He was a quiet leader. He was, very quiet even in person.
He's quiet in general.
Yeah, yes. Pretty laid back in person, but on the field, he was pretty ferocious. He was in on most tackles, and you didn't see a lot of guys get past him once they got into that middle.
Very, very true. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. That would have been my pick, but so that we have a little bit of variance, my pick is going to be Jovan Santos Knox.
Yeah.
Because not only do I think he's an amazing player, but he's just a great dude, and I want him to be on the team.
And it seems like he really liked being here, like not just on the Eskimos, but in the city of Edmonton as well.
I got that feel. Yeah.
Any interaction I ever had with him, he just seemed really happy to be here.
Yes.
In Edmonton, as well as being on the Eskimos. I love Vontae Diggs. I mean, he was our pick for Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
He was the team's pick for Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely.
And I think that we can still figure out ways. I mean, we have a new defensive coordinator. Maybe we'll get some 3-4 sets where you can have Santos Knox, Larry Dean, Vontae Diggs, and maybe Don Unamba or Brian Walker, whoever, as those 4 linebackers. Because, again, Unamba is more of a hybrid between that Sam linebacker and a nickelback kind of thing. So he's a secondary, he's a linebacker, he's both.
Right.
So if that's the case and you have 3 down linebackers, maybe you have 3 linemen and 6 guys in the secondary. Who knows?
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that's a high-class problem, let's be honest.
Absolutely. But I think those 2 names are both ones that are legit.
Absolutely.
That I would say we could easily put that.
Yep.
All right. So now, non-Eskimos.
Okay. Go for it.
So I'm going to go first. Now I'm picking a name from out east, and my pick was Jamar Roll off of the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Nice choice,
because I think he might be available.
Yeah,
I think that they've kind of kept their secondary together there, and he was the backup guy. And man, can that guy ball hawk? Yep. I would definitely. I mean, the first name that popped to me on the Hamilton Tiger Cats was Frankie Williams.
Yeah,
because he can do both. He can be DB and he can do a returner.
Yeah,
but I think the chances of him being released or not being signed are very slim. So that's why I went with Jamar Roll.
Yeah, I went through a lot of names on there, and when I first got this, I was adding people like Stanley Bryant, who just got extended.
Exactly.
So that's a name on there.
But see, this is the first time in a long time that I actually skipped most of the offensive linemen because our O-line was so good, and we're only going to add in Survey.
Absolutely. I added Tunda Adeleke as well. I thought it would have been great at safety. He just got extended.
Yep.
Guys like Reggie Begelton, Willie Jefferson, Winston Rose, all of them have NFL shots now, so they've signed with other teams, so they're out. So that really kind of dropped things there. I sort of figured that I'd like to see the two positions really improved upon, and that was defensive back and oddly enough wide receiver. I thought that we still could use a real threat out there.
You and I think a lot alike.
Yeah, absolutely. So while originally I wanted like a Darrell Walker, who is available as someone that is really put him in that boundary wide receiver spot would be just deadly. Ultimately, I went with the defensive back, and I went with Richard Leonard, also from the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
There you go. Yeah.
This is a guy that was a starter and then was actually not a starter in the Grey Cup. So I think they may be moving on from him, and he might be available as well. So if we could put him in there, we do have certainly some spots available. We don't know how we're going to be dealing with that ratio with a new defensive coordinator. Are we going to have that non-import spot there? Are we going to take someone like a Godfrey Niek and maybe move him to a safety position and go with imports on both, or Americans on both corner spots?
Right.
Lots of options, but I think that he certainly gives us enough that, I mean, he's an all-star. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I can't argue that. I know that there was a lot of names. It was hard to.
Oh yeah, Fenner was a name that popped up in there,
and one that even popped up for me. And this sounds funny because he didn't really do a whole lot last year. But Kevin Fogg, who I've been saying for a few years,
I would have returner.
Kind of does both, right? And has that bit of a ball hawk guy in that secondary. So be very interesting to see how any of those guys. But when I narrowed it down,
free agents, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, what about in Montreal? You got two guys that are strong safeties.
Absolutely.
Because of Bola Combo doing so well, does that mean maybe there's a possibility that we could shake someone else loose?
Is they going to trade, or are they going to... Wow, yeah. Well, you never know.
You never know, because if you got two guys that can be starting at safety...
Yep. How do you... Yeah, you got to figure out something. So it'll be very interesting for sure. Excellent question, Derek, and lots of fun to kind of go through every there. Joe asks us, who is your daddy and what does he do? That's... Very first Empire question. Thank you, Balaneski.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not a tumor.
No, exactly. That's pretty much a great answer. Okay. Jacob asks, the AJ Gas hiring, do you think that was due to salary issues, or is the special teams unit healthy?
Oh, I don't think it has anything to do with salary.
I don't think so either.
Because he would have been a free agent. I mean, they only signed them for 1 year. Everyone was a one-year guy except for the one guy who stepped down.
Right.
In our former defensive coordinator. So I don't think there was anything salary-related to keeping AJ Gas. I think he was, again, recommended by Jason Moss.
Yep.
And Moss and Milanovic have a great relationship.
Mm-hmm. They sure do.
Moss was both a receivers coach and quarterback coach under Milanovic in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they get along well. And Moss would honestly say, listen, this is a good guy. And Milanovic can see for himself, looking at the tape, watching tape.
The video?
Yeah,
film?
watching the talking pictures.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, watching the video of the...
You wish it was tape, just so that you could collect it all.
Totally would.
Yes, absolutely.
I got to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But I think that our special teams did show some improvement in there. I'm interested to see what it's like under a different head coach.
Yeah.
Because I think the head coaching philosophy, if he is saying... Well, I'm worried way more about keeping the ball, not turning it over, than getting yards. That's going to make a difference. You're not going to have a guy that's going to be like trying hard to break one.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally think, and Jacob, I get I get your thought process on this, that the special teams have not been good for a long time, and even last year we were, we often said the not so special teams, but. I do believe that having some consistency at that special teams role, and when you listen to the interview with AJ Gass and how he's starting to build and learn about some of these things across the guys that he's going against, and kind of building that core of guys that plays on special teams, I think this is actually a really, really good signing to have that consistency and see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, we damn close to breaking one again this last year.
Close, yeah.
Christian Jones just literally ran out of gas.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Nice.
But if he would have, maybe not been returning a bunch before that, maybe he goes all the way, or, maybe just one more block and he makes it. Yeah,
well, and I think, too, we can't undersell as well that AJ can also be a linebacker coach to some degree.
Yep.
Much like he said, where Winston October will be helping him with some returners, he can lend that hand to the linebacker side of things as well. So I think multifaceted coaches, I mean, those are guys you want to keep around.
That's one position I am not looking forward to when we build that depth chart as a linebacker.
Oh, God, that's going to be ridiculous. Yeah. How do we not put AJ on there? But there's going to be he's got a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, at least at that position, we are doing a middle linebacker separate from outside linebacker.
But even still, my goodness.
When you've got Willie Pless and Danny Bass and Dan Kepley and AJ Gass and JC Sherritt.
Oh, up the middle, you mean? Yeah.
This is just the middle linebacker
just
position.
The middle. Yeah. Even Larry Dean. Like, how do the list is.
I think if Larry Dean stays with the team and is here for a couple more years, he just makes it even tougher.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
it's going to be fun.
It will be.
It's going to be fun. That's my excited voice. Can you tell?
I totally can.
Perfect. All right. Last one came from Chad, and we did try and answer this on YouTube, but surprisingly, no volume makes it hard for you to understand what we're saying.
I don't know if we're right or wrong.
Jed probably understood because he can read it all. Sneaky jersey that you might get to put. What number would you put on a jersey this year? He didn't really say if it was looking for consistency for long term or what's your angle?
So under the radar kind of player. Yeah. And I'll go with who I said on the Periscope. Since nobody heard, I could make up anything I wanted.
You really could, yeah, exactly.
But a guy we talked about earlier is Brian Walker.
Liar. No, I'm kidding.
That's right.
That's right.
I'm just going to put no number and Mandruziak.
That's perfect. Oh, I really like that, actually.
I knew you would.
Yeah, it's very tempting. Okay.
I'll have him do it.
Yeah, perfect.
No. Yeah, like I can have Dwayne do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't pay a salary.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Brian Walker is a guy, he signed a 3-year deal, so he's going to be around here for a while, hopefully. I thought he did great out of camp, taking over for Don Unamba, who got injured like in the first play of the season.
Yeah.
He didn't look really out of place. I mean, we had two rookies starting in that linebacking core with Vontae Diggs on one side and Brian Walker on the other side, and I thought we hit the ground running on that. And, he played in the defensive backfield.
Mm-hmm.
At halfback. And again, I thought for a young guy, he was 23.
Yeah.
And he didn't look out of place at all.
No, absolutely. And he was my top pick as well, but I thought about it some more and had a backup just in case, because I figured you might go that way. And it's kind of funny because I understand this is my favorite number, so it does play into it. But you want to talk about a guy who's been sneaky good, who's getting better every year, that I think will be here for the long term and will actually, that jersey will mean something a while. I think you look at number 27, Tanner Green.
Yeah, I mean, fullbacks years ago were like, they're guys that carried the ball.
Absolutely.
I mean, George Reed was a fullback. Johnny Bright, Normie Kwong. Lately, it's been more of a blocking position, both at tight end and out of the fullback spot. But
also a special teams position that is just huge.
Absolutely. And he gives it his all. He's probably the most underrated guy on our team right now.
Yeah.
So if you want, I think we could see a bunch more 27 Greens out in the stadium coming up this year.
Very exciting. And I have the helmet to match.
Perfect.
It's very exciting.
That's all you need.
Lovely. Well, thank you everyone for sending in your questions. And if you have other ones during the off season, please just fire them our way and we will set aside some time to answer those for you.
Maybe we'll do an AMA.
Ooh, maybe. Much like Trevor Harris.
Much like Mr. Harris.
That was quite interesting. Did you read it?
No, I haven't had a chance.
Oh, there's some interesting ones in there. We'll maybe break that down next time. All right, sounds good. Well, Superfan, this was a blast. As always, tell everyone where everybody finds you on the Twitters.
Well, they can find me at 56 Parkies, and especially now with the Ultimate Depth Chart, you can find that at Esks History.
Ooh, Ultimate Depth Chart. Is that what we're calling it now?
Sure.
It sounds wonderful.
It's to me, it's just the all-time roster that we are building by position. Man, just give me some touch calls.
There is, for sure. Make sure you're following the commissioner at Duchess Lombardi. And, of course, you can find me at Freepalicious and the show at Esk Empire Pod. Make sure you're following Pay It Forward with Football, who are now also on Twitter and Facebook. And they have brand new snazzy shirts for $20.
As they should.
Support Pay It Forward with Football as it's a great cause. Of course, make sure you check out all the great shows on the Alberta Podcast Network at albertapodcastnetwork.com, and of course all the CFPN pods as everybody gets fired up and getting ready for free agency, lots of coaching moves, and we're starting to see more podcasts come out, so make sure you follow all those at CF Pod Network on Twitter. Of course, you can find all of our social channels at eskempire.ca. Final plug, West of Us, this coming Saturday, January 25th, first round, downtown.
5 p.m.
That's lovely. It was almost like a UFC, promo. No, but I was trying to make it sound better than it was. Okay. Come on down, talk some football, win some prizes, get a Kwaku t-shirt.
Get some wings.
Ooh. Garlic Parmesan on fries.
Oh, I'm all in.
But they do have hot Parmesan wings, which are unreal.
Well, now.
Oh. Yes.
You gave me the whole seat. I just needed the edge.
I've tried over and over again. Make sure that you stay tuned to our YouTube live channel where you can see us miming lots in the next few weeks as we try to make that work properly. Because what we like to do is make it an incredible game of charades.
Right.
Yeah, it's very fun.
2 words, sounds like.
That's right. Yeah. Well, sounds like nothing because there's no volume. Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll keep working on it. It'll happen. Fill out your ballots for the Ultimate Depth Chart. We will be retweeting all of the links to do so, and we will be back in 2 weeks to announce the next set of winners. So for Commissioner Kayla and Superfan Mike, I'm Andrew. Remember, you can't catch footballs with your face, and we will absolutely talk to you at West of Us on Saturday.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.